Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast with Michelle Chalfant, a place to delve into who we are, how we got that way, and explore what it takes to be a healthy grown-up. With an extensive toolbox and guests with varied expertise, Michelle will lead us on a journey to learn what it's like to live authentically and to love ourselves just the way we are. And now, here's Michelle.
Hello, everybody. It is wonderful, as always, to be here with you all today. Hope everyone's having a lovely day. I had a rainy day here in Nashville, Tennessee, but it was actually wonderful. I locked myself in my office the entire day today. It's the end of the day, and that's why I'm doing this podcast. But man, I got a lot of content written for future classes and different things I'm going to be sharing with you all very soon. So it was a really, really good day. But I noticed something I did throughout the day. It just dawned on me. I'm very happy anyway when it rains. I love rainy days, and I crack the window open and I hear the rain. It's so relaxing for me. But I intentionally was smiling. Like I just would intentionally pause what I was doing and put a big smile on my face. And I think I read that in one of Tony Robbins' books, probably 30 years ago, one of his first books. I was like, gosh, that really does work. I had like the endorphins rushing through my body. I felt like tingling all over. I said, this is so cool. So just a little tidbit for you all. Practice smiling. Just even if you do it right now, force yourself to smile. It really does change your attitude. I did it all day today. I was in the best mood all day. Anyway, so today I'm talking with you about PTSD. I just felt like it was time to talk about this. I don't think I've talked about this in the past. And I, of course, have some not only symptoms if you might be suffering with PTSD, but also, as you know, I always give you something good. How do you transform or heal that PTSD? Because so many of us feel stuck, and my job in the adult chair is to help you get unstuck. So I think I have some fabulous ideas to get unstuck. So if you know someone with PTSD, or if this is you, then make sure you pay close attention to the end, because I talk about some really great tools for getting you unstuck. Okay, everybody, but first, I need to have a little thank you to our sponsor for today. That sponsor is Ned. You know I love this company. Ned produces full spectrum hemp oil products that contain CBD, extracted from the finest organic hemp plants, and only sources its products from local farms and communities. And this is what I think is the coolest thing. They energetically infuse their products with love, gratitude, and positive vibrations. So amazing. So CBD, or cannabinoids, have a wide range of benefits and regulate nearly every biological system in the human body. Some of the best known are as a sleep aid. I know so many people that use CBD oil as a sleep aid. I have used it for insomnia. It works wonderfully for me as an anti-inflammatory as well. I've also used this when I have worked out, and I take it when I'm done, and oh my goodness, it really changes how I feel in my body. Also as a natural pain reliever to treat anxiety and PTSD, to treat depression, and also chronic conditions like epilepsy, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and more. So the question that people typically have is, do you get high off of this stuff? And the answer is absolutely not. There's a minuscule amount of THC, which is less than 0.3% as allowed by law. And that's the part that gets people high. So no, it does not affect you in that way. So I just want to have a big shout out to Ned, because I really love their products. I just spoke with someone the other day that was using CBD oil, and she said hers was giving her a headache. And I said, let me see that bottle. And it had all this added stuff in it. And I said, you do not need to be using this. Try Ned. And she said, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Hers had all these added things in the back of the bottle. So Ned is pure. Try it out. You can get 15% off today with free shipping. So go to helloned.com/adult. And that's again, helloned.com. And that promo again, / is adult. Give them a try. I love this company. Okay. Next thing I want to talk to you about, because I did the Adult Chair Weekend Intensive a couple of weeks ago, and we're already getting ready for the next one. And I just want to say, get excited, Texas, because the Adult Chair is coming down there in the fall. we're very excited. We're getting ready to plan it. And something else that came out of the adult chair that I did not share last week is we are going to take maybe something like 10 to 12 people and do an intensive. And probably we're planning it. So I can't say for sure. We're thinking and leaning toward Costa Rica. So very, very exciting. But I really want to share something with you that many of you did not know about, and that is the membership site. The adultchair.com/membership is a site that is part of our website that I created in order to help people that really want to learn a lot more about the adult chair and really apply it into their lives throughout the month. So it's every month we have a new theme. And this month, the month of May, we have self-love. So the whole month is about self-love. I've got in there a private members only podcast. I've got a guided meditation that helps take you deeper into self-love. 4 journaling prompts. You can do 1 a week, and that takes you deeper. I've got affirmations. We've got a live Q&A. So all these things happen within a month in the membership site, and it's very inexpensive. So come check it out at theadultchair.com/membership. And then you get benefits by being a member. So the people that came to the workshop got $50 off. They got extra things in their swag bags. They are getting discounts on upcoming live classes that I'm doing and online classes. And so there's a lot of benefits, and it honestly pays for itself by the end of the year. So check it out. We'd love to have you in there. And I think that's about all I have to share with you. Okay, we can move on now. We're at PTSD. Here we go. So PTSD, a lot of people talk about trauma, and there's a big T versus the little t. And the big trauma, of course, is something that's major, and then the little trauma is something that's minor as far as the trauma goes. In my opinion, I believe, regardless if it's small or big, they're still traumatic, and they can both cause PTSD. And many people do not know that they're walking around with PTSD. So what is PTSD? Post-traumatic stress disorder. What happens is after an event that takes place, or by the way, it also could be a recurring event that happens over and over and over again. If you're still, but it's over. If you're still having side effects that are affected, again, from that original event or something that went on and on for a while, then that's PTSD. It's like there's still that trigger that comes up at a later date. That's PTSD. So most people think of PTSD, or most people think of vets when they hear the word PTSD. They think of someone that has come back from the war and they're experiencing PTSD. Absolutely, yes. Many people have PTSD from being overseas, being involved in the war or some sort of military operation. 100%. I hear this all the time. Yes. However, I want to add to that. There are many, many other people that have PTSD that don't know it. Again, and they're walking around with it and existing with it, and they don't know that let's say that their anxiety or their depression is from PTSD. I remember myself, I was opening up my refrigerator. It was about 10 years ago, because I remember the house that I was in, and I was standing there in front of my fridge. I opened it up and I thought, it just hit me. It like dropped in, and I thought, oh my God, I have PTSD. I didn't even know it. Did not even know it. All the work that I've done on myself over all these years, I thought, gosh, no one ever mentioned that to me. That's incredible. I think I do. So of course, I was in the moment dumbfounded, but if anyone that knows me, I, of course, trailblaze. I said, I will figure this out, where it came from, why I think I have this, what my symptoms are, and I will transform this. And that is what I have done. And I still work on it, of course. But what I realized was I had it from my uncle. He really did create a living hell in our home. He was very angry. He was a rager. He was an alcoholic. He hated my mom. He didn't like actually a lot of people. He really did not like my mom. And it was my dad's twin brother. And we lived together, all of us, in a house all summer, in a lake house. And the rest of the year, he lived 2 miles away. So he would pop in at random into our house, no ringing the doorbell, just walk in. And the phone would ring, and we never knew it was him or not. And it was just this energy that he brought. It was very scary. You never knew when he was going to explode. It was always walking on eggshells. And as a kid growing up in that environment, it was very, very uncomfortable, is an understatement. It was living hell, honestly. So even though there wasn't all this physical abuse going on, it was so much, there was emotional abuse and for sure verbal abuse, but we were waiting and always, it was like a ticking time bomb with him because he was a big drinker and you never knew when he was going to explode. So I remember hearing the phone ring and I would jump. And of course, back in those days, there was no cell phones and there was no cell phone. There was no caller ID. So we never knew who was on the other end of the phone. So none of us liked to answer the phone except for my dad. Because of course, he and my dad had a great relationship. So I realized that my nervous system was in fight or flight all the time. The door would open and I would jump. The phone would ring and I would jump. And then when he would walk in, I would rush, if he would walk into the kitchen, I would rush into the kitchen if my mom was in there because I knew he didn't like my mom. But it wasn't an overt hatred that he had toward my mom. It was this covert, like hidden facial expressions. Under his breath, he would say things so uncomfortable and scary, frankly, because you didn't know when he was going to blow. So I'd go get in the middle of it and I'd try to distract and talk. And it was just like living on eggshells. So realizing this, my nervous system was programmed and ready for him every single minute of the day. I was ready to go into battle. Not that that happened very much, but my nervous system felt like it was going to happen. And it dawned on me, I remember that day that I opened up the fridge and I sat there and I was like, wow, this is why I continue to test when I have blood work done with my naturopathic doctor. It's like, gosh, I can't seem to heal this adrenal fatigue that I have had. And this must be why I'm so tired my entire life. I've just always had issues with fatigue. My poor cortisol was being pushed out my entire life living in that house. So for 18 years. And then of course I went back a couple of years after college even, but it was just this constant rush of cortisol. So yes, I was drained. Of course, my adrenals were taxed. And I also realized this is why I don't like when people perch their upper lips. And that's what he used to do. And I would get so triggered and I would just leave. It was just so unsettling to see that even when other people would do it. And therefore, again, there's my PTSD. So there were many things that I was doing as an adult because of how I was raised as a child. And again, it wasn't one big event. It wasn't a car accident. It wasn't an earthquake. It wasn't anything like that. It was this ongoing daily stress. And that's like a big exclamation point after that word in all bold and caps, stress to my body, to my brain, to my neurotransmitters, all of it were on 24/7. I had to be. So that's my version of PTSD. And that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because I really feel like other people are walking around with this and they don't even know it. Here's the thing though, even if you're someone that is a survivor of a car accident, let's say, or 9/11 or something like that, this podcast, what I'm going to say today still applies to you. This is not just for someone like me or that had my version of PTSD. And this is why I say to people all the time, I said it over the course of the weekend, probably 100 times when we just did the adult chair weekend, that awareness is key. It's the first step to healing and transformation. You have to become aware of what the heck was going on or went on, so then you know what to work on and where you can put your attention toward. So here are some ideas on symptoms for you if you might have PTSD. These, again, I want you to know are strategies from the adolescent chair, because the adolescent chair had to come up with these strategies to keep us safe and alive. None of them are bad. So don't get mad at yourself if you have one of these. They are survival strategies. They're okay. All of them. We don't want to hate different parts of ourselves or hate that we do this or that. It's part of surviving and keeping yourself alive. If anything, we need to have gratitude for the parts in our adolescent chair that tried so hard to keep us safe and alive. So here's some symptoms of PTSD. Number one, we leave our bodies. Our energy just scatters. We may feel like we're on the ceiling or basically anywhere but in our bodies. We just leave and we can't think straight is number two. Sometimes even when my own husband, he gets frustrated and he purches his lip, not exactly like my uncle, but very similarly to my uncle. And I remember when we were first married, he would do that and my stomach would get knots. And I wouldn't even know what my own name was. So I'd leave my body. Of course, if my energy is not fully in my body, I can't think straight. I don't know my name. And my husband would certainly never get as upset as my uncle, but it was just watching that. And I even will watch a movie. Someone on the TV will perch their lip and I can feel that tension in my body, like, oh, I don't like it. Because my uncle would do that, so that would trigger my old trauma. But if that's still happening now, that's when we know we have PTSD. And because we're not thinking straight, number 3 is we leave our bodies, can't think straight. We may say silly things or dumb things. It's again, we're just not fully in there. We're trying to survive. We're trying to sound intelligent and say something to someone that we are with, but we can't because we're so triggered. We're just not thinking straight, and it's okay. Another thing that happens is we go into freeze mode. Our whole energy field just freezes. It's because we go fight, flight, freeze. So if we're triggered, we go into freeze and we cannot even move. I remember I'd worked with a client. She was in a fire and she was telling me about it. And then she just stopped talking and her eyes were fixated across the room. And I said, Sally, what's going on? And she said, she couldn't even answer me. And I said, Sally, you're in my office. And I gave her the year. And I stood right in front of her. I said, Sally, you got to come back. And she says, oh my gosh. And she said, I was thinking about that fire. And I remember I couldn't move and I was in panic. And I said, yeah, we're going to take a breath. So anyway, I brought her obviously out of it, but even just thinking about it, but something can trigger us and we have the same exact response, not just thinking about it, but something will happen in our environment and we'll go into the freeze mode. Another thing that happens is we might feel like a small child or just feel small, like we feel like we've shrunk down. So what happens is we revert sometimes to a smaller or younger part of us. I've had some clients that actually start speaking like their children. They become young because that's where that trauma was. So they become the age of the trauma. Another thing that happens, number 6, is flashbacks. We have these flashbacks. We can be enjoying our day and boom, out of the blue, we have a memory of whatever the event was. It just hits us out of left field. That's PTSD. That's an aspect of PTSD or a symptom. Another thing is arousal. We just live with a state of arousal. So we're living with this fight or flight. That's what I was doing. And the heart might be racing and we don't even know it because it's just the normal way that we lived for so long. We don't even know that we live like that. I think these are also the people that could be really high strung or even type A. Their nervous system is functioning so high and they're doing that again from the adolescent part of us. So we don't slow down and feel that pain or remember that trauma. So if I'm moving so fast and getting everything perfect, I don't have to feel what I'm afraid of. So that arousal is another symptom of PTSD. Mood swings, ruminating thoughts, anxiety, depression. I remember I lived with this. I started my teen years, which again, I didn't know then, but I know now, or I knew as I got older. Goodness gracious, my poor nervous system and my neurotransmitters were fried. I mean, fried. They were living on high alert for 18 years. So of course, what do I expect? I'm going to have anxiety, depression, mood swings, ruminating thoughts, all of it. Insomnia, sleep issues. Another one is that startle response. I had that big time. I still have it a little bit, where people walk into the room behind you and you jump. In fact, where I work right now, people that I work with know not to come in the kitchen. And if they do, if I'm in the kitchen, they'll say, especially one woman that I work with says, Michelle, I'm coming in the kitchen. I just want you to know. And I'm like, thank you so much, because I startle. And my husband will say that. He'll say, I'm coming in the bathroom. I just want you to know. I know you're in there getting ready. I'm coming in, because I find myself, I get so focused on what I'm doing, I'm not aware. And then if I suddenly notice someone behind me, I jump. So it's way better than it ever was, but that's certainly an aspect of PTSD. Avoidance. Many of us will stay away from the place or people to avoid getting or going back into that trauma. Again, whether it be anything, any sort of trauma, rape or any kind of abuse, we'll just avoid those people altogether, or we avoid the place. I know somebody, a really, really good friend of mine had I went through a trauma and a betrayal with her. She just dropped me as a friend because I said one thing to her that was pretty benign, but she was going through her own stuff and just ended our relationship. It hurt me so badly, but it was such a traumatic event for me just to drop me in that way. I did not want to even go to any restaurants that she would ever go to, or even in her part of town, because I said, I just don't want to see her because I was so afraid of being re-traumatized from her. She was just, she'd raged on me one time, and actually, even I'm aware of it right now, it probably triggered me and reminded me of my uncle. I didn't even know that till right now saying this. But after I'd said one thing to her, she went into a rage on me, and it was awful. And she just dropped me. And of course, I'm like, let's talk about it. We can work through anything. We've been friends for almost 10 years. And that was it. And it was really scary. So here's the thing. What do we do if this feels like something that we've experienced? So if you've experienced PTSD or any of this resonates with you, here's some great ideas that have worked really well with myself and my clients in getting them out of PTSD. One tool or technique that is, so many people use this as a go-to for trauma, is EMDR or brain spotting. I have met some fabulous EMDR practitioners over the years, and I'm actually trained in brain spotting, which is a cousin to EMDR. These work really, really well for some people, but not all. I myself had EMDR done with a few different practitioners over the years, and I just walked away from it. I never noticed an improvement. However, I'm not saying that it's bad. That was me. So for you, this might be a wonderful technique. So give that a try, EMDR or brain spotting. It's really great for rewiring that brain, and it does so many beautiful things with trauma. So give that a try. Another thing that I really love is it's Hakomi, Hakomi, and I'll put this in the show notes. It's a therapy technique, and I love Hakomi. And I also love bioenergetics, and it's all about getting the emotion out of the body. It's not a table therapy. It's an actual therapy where you're sitting, but you're doing a lot of movement in order to release these emotions from the body. Love these two. Speaking of getting emotion out of the body, Peter Levine, I love this guy. He is the trauma guy, and he wrote the book, The Body Keeps Score, or Your Body Keeps Score. Because of, again, a lot of his work, I took the training for somatic experiencing, and I love that, SE. And it's, again, a lot of these actually SE practitioners, we used to do EMDR, now they've moved over to SE. And it's about feeling what's going on in the body, allowing the body to process it and move it out. It's a beautiful technique. It's very soft and gentle. Of course, when we have a release, you might be crying, but otherwise it's a really beautiful technique. I love SE. This sounds basic, but talk therapy is fabulous. I have found that people come in and they'll say to me, I have not shared this with anyone on the planet. And they share their story. They share their trauma with me. And they'll say at the end, and I just listen. I just reflective listen. And they'll say to me, this was such an incredible session. Thank you for witnessing and listening to me. And I don't fix anybody. I'll say, yep, I was not here to fix you. I just wanted to witness, because even sharing your story out loud is so powerful and transformational. So if you've not done that, start with talk therapy. It's very, very powerful. Another thing I love are the float tanks. Those float tanks that are filled with salt, so you just float at the top. It is so incredibly healing for your nervous system. With PTSD, again, our nervous systems can be so triggered, and we live in that fight or flight. The float tank is a wonderful way to reset that nervous system. It really simulates being in the womb when you're a baby. So it's wonderful. I'm claustrophobic. I was afraid to do this for so many years. And I recently did it, and I got in and I was like, now I was fidgety. I'm not going to lie about that. However, the tank that you're in is a very large tank, and it does close, but there's some lights on in there. And if you want the lights, and there's music if you want, but I was not claustrophobic, and I don't like small spaces, but I was okay in there. So, and you can do it with the lid open too. So give it a try. They say to do it at least 3 sessions, and you're going to then start noticing a reset to your nervous system. Something else I love is hypnosis. This is another one that's so, so good for going back and rewriting and reframing what happened with a trauma. This is something that I do with my clients quite a bit. So oftentimes with trauma, we find ourselves stuck in the story. So what I share with my clients, or I invite them to end their story. You know, the brain freezes and we forget, that part of us forgets, like, but we made it. I had a client that was telling me about a flood that she was in, and it was terrifying even to listen to her. It was horrifying. Like, the animals were getting washed away, you know, they were gripping on for dear life, and she was in a state of panic in my office, and she said, "Oh my God, the water," you know, and I said, "Okay." I said, "Susan, how did the story end?" And she said, "Oh yeah, well, a boat came and it rescued all of us, and they even got my dogs." And I said, "Okay, can you go there and let that land? Because you're not letting the ending of the story land with you." So she was in the trauma, and then the end of the story was still in her mind, and it wasn't in the body. I said, "Can you pull the ending down into the body? Let's drop chin down. And I want you to slow everything down. And I want you to feel in your body. I want you to see the boat coming towards you." And then I do a lot of slideshows. So the boat's coming towards you, see that. She could feel that her body started to relax. I said, "Here comes the boat. Here it is at you." She says, "Okay, we're climbing." I said, "Feel that." So anyway, so we ended the story. And I said, "And then where are you now?" She goes, "Oh my gosh, I'm in your office." She goes, "I was in the flood for a minute." I said, "I noticed you were in the flood. Time to get back into my office." She says, "Oh, we made it." I said, "Yeah, you made it. You made it." So oftentimes when people make it, maybe some other people didn't make it, and that's the trauma. So another thing I do with my clients is I help them to retell the story, or I add to the story things that they're not sure of. So I might say, "Okay, can we add to that story?" Because let's just use my client for an example. When the flood, like, what if, let's say, someone like her neighbor didn't make it? So I might say, "Okay, so what might have then happened to your neighbor?" "Well, they didn't make it. You know, they died, they drowned." "Okay, so then where did they go?" And I will get spiritual with them, and I'll say, and then they might say, "Well, I think they might have gone to heaven, but I don't know." And I'll say, "Well, how does it feel if you would believe that they went to heaven?" And they might say, "Yes, it feels great." I'll say, "Let's just go with that story because that feels so good." But the key is dropping it below the chin to anchor it into the body. We got to bring it down, bring that story down. I remember doing a powerful session with a client a few years back, and I want to share this with you because this can be powerful for you as well. So it's a combo of retelling your story and doing like a guided meditation. So I have my clients, I have them close their eyes, and I invite them to come up with a symbol that represents protection and safety. So I allow that symbol to rise up through them, or I have them come up with a guide that represents the same thing. So a guide could be someone that you know in human form, or someone that's crossed over. It could be Jesus, Buddha, it does not matter. But I have my client come up with, who or what do you need to be with you if you go back and walk through this trauma that would help you to relax and feel safe and calm. And I promise you, their unconscious mind will come up with something random will pop up. Sometimes people say something like, "It's a starfish. I don't even like starfish." I'm like, "Let's go with the starfish." So what I have them do then is they visualize, they go back through the story with that symbol or their guide or both. And we finish the story or the trauma in the way that they wanted the story or the trauma to end instead of how it did end. So we totally reframe and rewrite that story. I, in fact, had a 60-year-old client. I remember she was 60-something many years ago, and she was sexually abused repeatedly by a family friend when she was a child. I think she was around 10. And she was having nightmares over and over again. She could not sleep at night. She would leave her body even while she was driving. So it was dangerous for her to even drive. And her therapist referred her to me. And I said, all right, let's just see what we can do with this. So I was her guide, and which is fine. I invite my clients to do that. They're like, I don't have a guide. I'm like, can I come? I'll be your guide with you. So I did this with this client, and we went through the whole scene. And again, I do it as a slideshow. So I go piece by piece by piece and very slowly. And I said, okay, so what do you hear? Okay, the guy's pulling up in his car. Feel it. Okay, next scene. Feel this. And she had him walking in the house. I said, okay, do you hear him coming up the front steps? She says, I do. And she started crying. And I said, what do you want to do with this guy? He's walking in your house. What do you want to do? She goes, I want him dead. This man was so awful to me and nobody knew, and he did it repeatedly for years. I said, well, what do you want to do? Like, she says, I want him dead. I said, well, do you want to kill him? She says, I can do that. And I said, you can do whatever you want. We are rewriting your script. And she said, let's do it. And I said, doesn't your father have a gun set? And she said, he does. I said, let's go get it. So we went and we unlocked it and we got her father's gun set, opened up her father's gun safe, and she pulled out a gun, and the guy walked in the front door. And in her mind, I was stood right next to her. And I said, I give you full permission to shoot this man. He is an abusive man. And she did. And he fell to the floor. And then we dialed 911. And I took her through the whole entire scene. It's a whole movie. And I said, how do you feel now? And she started crying. And she says, I have never felt so empowered in my whole entire life. Isn't that incredible? She's never felt that empowered in her whole life. It was just so cool. So we ended our session and she left my office and emailed me and said that she slept through the night and felt incredibly light as she'd ever felt in her whole entire life. Just an incredible little process that I do with clients. And sometimes it takes one session. And actually, most of the time it takes one session. I actually don't know that I've done this more than one session, but I guess a couple of times I might have done 2 sessions. But this process of rewriting the story and integrating what the mind, like what would have happened that would have made you feel empowered and strong and so good. You just add that in. And remember, you bring the symbol or the guide with you, and that person then feels safer as they're going through the whole process, and you make up whatever you want to make up. Sometimes I end the sessions with like a round of EFT, emotional freedom technique, and I'll have them tap in. This is my new belief. This is my new belief. This is my new reality. Or I might even do some NLP to anchor in her new reality. But she was good. I don't even think that we did that with her. It was just really, really empowering that she was able to do that with her abuser, and then just ended the story in such a new way. I think we had, that was it. That was the end of the story. So it was great. I think she added a few more things in. I can't remember, but that was the bulk of it. You can add in whatever you want. So it's sort of like updating a program that we would do on our phone. It's the same kind of thing. And I feel like we just update the program when we're laying a new program on top of the old. So the brain doesn't know, did it really happen like that? Or am I making that up? Because think about it. Even when you think about something in the past right now, it's not really happening right now. The brain is remembering it. So we're just going in and sort of twisting around memories a little bit so that they don't re-traumatize us and cause PTSD. And we can then relax, and the nervous system can also relax. Another thing I love is inner child work. When we experience trauma as a child, we sometimes have to go back and get that frozen child, that frozen part of us. So when the trauma happens, sometimes the little part of us, the little child part of us gets stuck. And it's like a fragmented part of our energy field that gets stuck in that moment. So we've got to go back and we rescue that part. And so what I do is I'll do, again, a guided visualization with my clients, and I walk them back in time. But again, I might be with them or a guide or a symbol, but they're in their adult, and we go back and we find that frozen part that's scared to death because of the trauma. And then we let them know that we're here to help them. And we introduce ourselves. We say, hello, I'm Michelle. I'm the adult version of you. I'm the grown-up version of you. And I'm so sorry I haven't been here, but I'm here now. And I'm going to come. And I'm here to help move you forward and to integrate back into who we are. And I want to get to know you. So we do this, the typical adult chair work and just getting to know that precious part that's frozen. And sometimes when we go back in the beginning and do this inner child work, that inner child is kind of doesn't know who we are and a little bit afraid maybe, or shy, or won't look at us or won't talk to us. Just keep at it. Keep at it, because I promise you, you will eventually find this little child that's going to look up at you and go, I'm so glad you're here, and want to jump in your arms. I've seen this time and time again. Even when we go back and we find angry little inner child parts, they eventually come around. I just did this with this work with someone just the other day. She had gone back and she said, I've been working with this inner child, and there was a lot of trauma with this woman. And she said, my inner child will not look at me. So I took her back in my office and I said, let's go visit her now. So she closed her eyes and she went and visited her. And I said, it was her parents. One of the things, she had many traumas, but a big first one, she had all kinds of sexual abuse and all these other things, but her little inner child wouldn't look at her. And I said, can you let her know, that you're here to help her and you love her? And can you also let her know that she's not the cause of her parents' divorce? Because that was the first big whopper that hit her. And she said the little child just looked up at her and said, oh my gosh. So again, we're educating that little girl or that little boy that we're working with. They don't know. So we get stuck in these beliefs, and we live our adult lives with these beliefs that are anchored within us, and they're stuck. So doing inner child work, when we go back in time and speak to these parts and educate them on what really happened or what was true, like it wasn't your fault. Mommy and daddy would have gotten a divorce whether you were in the picture or not, and they were not a happy couple, and it wasn't your fault. And that little girl melted and she changed in that moment. So educate your little inner child on what happened. And if it was a trauma, we have to let them know that wasn't your fault. If it was an abuse, that wasn't your fault. They were abused. Many people I work with have been raped as children or even teenagers. And I have to go back with them and we talk to that part and say, this wasn't your fault. And we let them know all kinds of truths. And we introduce ourselves from the adults. We do it the same way. If you want to learn, I've got that free, I put together, for those of you that have never worked with your inner child, I've got a free thing on my website, free offering. It's just go to theadultchair.com/inner child. It's 2 meditations, guided meditations that help you to connect with your inner child, and you can work with your inner child. And I've got journaling prompts that help you work with that part. And then I've got a whole list of ideas on how you work with that inner child. So if you don't have experience working with your inner child, I created this just so you can learn how to go in and work with your inner child, because I know the power of it. Okay, the last 2 things that I find so incredibly helpful with trauma, releasing trauma and PTSD from the body. The one thing I know you've heard me talk about many, many times is the myofascial massage. And I have the girl in my office that I do this with, but it's such a beautiful, intuitive approach. It's like therapy on the table, I call it, because she's going in and she's able to sense what's going on. And the fascia holds these memories, and she's able to go in, find them, talk about them, and then she releases them. And I remember the first time going in to see her, I was laid on her table, and I'll bring this up again. I'm going to interview her soon, I hope. And she said, oh, you're sitting in fight or flight, I see. And I was so relaxed that day. And I said, what? And she says, your body is in fight or flight. Your mind is not. You're very relaxed in your mind, but your body is not. What an eye-opener that was. And she has really helped me to balance out my nervous system and then get me out of that fight or flight. That's part of my self-care. I go every 2 weeks, because even the new stuff that happens in my life, she's able to help process that out of me. But I would find a John Barnes trained, that's the key, myofascial massage person. I've had myofascial massage. It's not the same thing as a John Barnes trained myofascial massage person. You can just Google that, and they're international. The other person that I love in my office that I've worked with even longer than my myofascial person is a girl that does something called NST, neurostructural integration. It's a phenomenal approach, very gentle technique to the body that helps, again, to release the PTSD or trauma or anxiety from the body. It's beautiful work. A girl in my office, Annie Waugh, does this work. And I'm going to put all these people's names and links in the show notes. So if you want information on any of these people or on exactly what they do and what things like NST are all about, it will be in the show notes. But check that out, neurostructural integration. It's a beautiful, beautiful technique. Annie has worked on me for years in releasing that PTSD or the I would say the fight or flight response in the body that, again, that the PTSD is linked to. And this is something that Annie actually introduced me to in a big way, are the essential oils. And I did a podcast with Annie, which again, I'll link in the show notes, but a beautiful show on essential oils and the power of using oils to release trauma from the body. It's amazing what happens with our senses, with the sense of smell and what happens in the brain. So much. I know I gave you guys a ton. And again, I will put as much of this in the show notes as I possibly can. And again, a lot of people say, well, I don't do anything, but I work out or I go running or I'm a boxer. Great. That's fantastic. You've got to do what feels right for you. Do what feels right for you to help with your nervous system and releasing this PTSD. I really believe, again, and some people come in and they're shaming themselves for being on meds all these years and they didn't know that their anxiety or the depression was created from PTSD, and then we work on it and then they have much less anxiety and depression and they don't need to be on meds, etc. It's okay. Like, we've got to be easy on ourselves, people. How we talk to ourselves is so important with our healing. So just remember, we're always doing the best we can. We all are. Even when it doesn't look so great, we're still doing the best we can. So my belief is that we can heal, change, and transform with the right tools. I hope that if you struggle with PTSD or trauma, that you found something here helpful for your own journey. All right. So that's all I've got for you. It's a lot. I know. You might want to listen to this one again and again and again. I think I've got 13 symptoms of PTSD, and then I've got probably 12 or 13, tools or techniques. So you can work through this. I have. I realize that if Michelle can do it, and I'm stubborn, anybody can do it. So trust me, you can do this. Just find a practitioner that can help you, but you can do a lot of this on your own. I've done a lot of this work on my own, just using the adult chair model to help me through my own trauma and my own PTSD. But I think we always need helpers too. So, okay, that's all I've got for you guys today. If you want more adult chair, and this month again is all about self-love, and really people have reported they love the meditation that I put out this month on self-love in the membership site. Come join us in there at theadultchair.com/membership. We'd love to have you in there. But for now, take a deep breath, because that was a lot of information. I'm signing off, and I will see you all seated right here firmly in the adult chair.